Welcome to the My Retirement Clarity Podcast, where our goal is simple, to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. The team at Perkins Wealth Management does this by helping good people make great decisions so they can enjoy an amazing retirement. And now, here's your host and financial advisor, Lee Perkins.
Welcome in. This is My Retirement Clarity. I'm Ben George with Lee Perkins, owner and financial advisor at JL Perkins Wealth Management there in beautiful Macon, Georgia. We got a good show for you today. We got a lot of good questions to dive into, a lot of good scenarios to break down. But Lee, how's everything with you guys?
It's good. Everything is good. We continue to see a lot of people in here. I've got a couple of other advisors here in the office, and we take a lot of questions. People ask me all the time, what do I do? And I'm like, man, I answer questions and help solve problems. And so it's kind of what today's show is about. We're going over some questions that we got from some of the listeners out there.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here with us on the show. If you have questions for Lee, call the office directly at 478-254-3550. Or just remember, you can go to talkwithjlp.com to get on Lee's calendar right now. All right, let's dive right in, Lee, and let's start off with this question. Do you consider bonds to be a good source of retirement income?
It's a little bit of it's a good question, but a little bit of you got to have a whole lot of context to a question like that before I can answer it fully. But it can play a part of it, but not all of it. I wouldn't go out and buy a bunch of individual bonds and try to get income from that. I don't think long term that plays because of inflation. I want your income to be steady. I would like it to increase, and having everything in one asset class like bonds is just not good. I think you should sprinkle in with some equities and stocks and ETFs, because those things can also pump out income. But mainly what they do is they help you outpace inflation, because if you just turn on income from a bond, I mean, it is what it is, and we don't have a way to have more income in the future. You know, my number one combo at Chick-fil-A used to cost $6. It's over $9. Yeah. And if I had set my income up years ago to just get income from bonds, you know, there's some interest rate risk there, and my income would not have worked out the way that I'd planned. So yeah, I would say diversify your income sources other than just putting everything in bonds. Sprinkle in some equities too, because that's going to help you in the long run.
Yeah, a great question. But again, what reason why you want to have a plan in place to make sure you do have the right investment strategy and make sure you have confidence in what your plan is doing and where it's taking you. Again, that's what you can do at JL Perkins Wealth Management with the team there. All right, here's our next question. I admit that I'm a worrier and probably spend too much time fretting about financial matters. Can you tell me just a few things that I should be particularly concerned about as a single 62-year-old woman? I think I'll feel better if I can just worry about a few things instead of worrying about everything.
This is a really good question. I appreciate you asking. I also like you admit that you worry about things, because a lot of people won't admit that and confess that they are a worrier. But I think, you know, the good news is here, you don't have to worry about everything. We've talked in past episodes about how the media and politics, everything makes us worry about everything. I would not worry about that. Turn the TV off, enjoy your life. And I just, you know, I think you should focus on a couple of things. You know, if you need to worry about a couple of things, that's okay. But I want you to worry about the right things. So here's a couple of things that I think you want to look at. And number one is just income. Kind of like we just talked about with bonds, just make sure you know what your income needs are. You've done the numbers on what your expenses are. And then let's put together an income plan that just works. And if that income is reliable, it doesn't matter if a crazy leader in the third world shoots a nuclear test weapon into an ocean somewhere, or if our president gets on the TV and makes some troll somebody, because I think he's a part-time president, part-time troller, because he trolls a lot of people, and that makes people worry. Don't worry about that kind of stuff. If you want to worry about politics, worry about your local elections. I mean, we just had local elections in my county this week for a very important thing, and the turnout was abysmal. Those are the things that really matter, because those politicians can certainly help you more than, or not help you, because I don't like the idea of politicians helping us. We have a better chance to make an impact with local politicians than people that don't know our names. I would say another area to maybe look at and consider is just your health. You know, we get older, bodies break down, and it becomes expensive. How have you addressed who's going to take care of you when you can no longer take care of yourself? And that could be some type of long-term care. I'm not saying a long-term care policy, but you have to have a plan for long-term care. So that's one that you definitely want to focus on. And then the third thing, I would just say, just be organized, keep things simple. No reason to overcomplicate things. Like we talked about in past episodes, a 1 or 2 page plan that shows you everything that's going to happen without all the minutia underneath that. Simplicity, there's a lot that says for a lot that goes into being simple and something that you can understand and something that your kids can understand. Easier is better.
Yeah, easier is better. And you mentioned long-term care, so here's a question about that right on time. I haven't bought any long-term care insurance because my assumption is that by the time I need nursing home care, I will have gotten a sizable inheritance from my parents. Is that a bad plan?
All right, well, this is to me, it's kind of a 2-part question because It's talking about long-term care, and then we're also talking about that inheritance. So I'll kind of discount the long-term care part of this. I think you should address it, but relying on an inheritance for anything that is not wise at all. So for our clients that come in and tell me that, they tell me, I think I'm going to get an inheritance. So you're either going to get an inheritance or you're going to get less of an inheritance or you're going to get no inheritance, because it depends on a lot of things. And many times it depends on whoever you're inheriting that money from. It's going to depend on how they die. And if they have long-term care insurance, because if they don't and they drain their assets, what you thought you were going to inherit could be 50% less, 25% less, or 75% less than what you thought. And if that's the case, then maybe you can't address long-term care like you planned on. One of the other things that people all the time who come in here and they're behind on retirement and there's no sense of urgency to play catch up, they're like, okay, my parents are going to leave me a lot of money. And so we put into the planning software, I don't even factor that in because I want to plan on you not getting that. If you get it, it's gravy, but it's a bad idea to depend on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's not a great plan just to hope that works out the way it does, because anything could change in life. All right. Yeah.
Hope is not a strategy.
No.
I mean, that retirement is too important to hope your way through it. So, and healthcare and long-term care is the same thing. Don't hope you get an inheritance. Let's make plans for it. And if you get that inheritance, then that's good. Hey folks, Lee Perkins here. I wanted to tell you about our brand new book called Next Phase: How to Retire in a Year or Less Without Regrets. It's all about helping you prepare for the next phase of your life, whatever that looks like for you. So, if you're ready to make the most of your next phase, or if you're already retired and aren't sure you're doing all you can to get the most out of your retirement, then you'll want a copy of this book. All you have to do is text Next Phase to 478-475-2050, and we'll send you a copy right away. You can also access additional resources and register for one of our upcoming workshops at our website, www.myretirementclarity.com. Thanks for listening. Now back to the show.
All right, here, next question, Lee, for you. I've recently found out that my department at work, and of course my position, is about to be completely eliminated. I'm only 55, so I can't pull money out of retirement just yet, but I have plenty saved. So I think virtually impossible to find a new job with a salary that's comparable to what I have been making. So how much should I be concerned right now?
You should be concerned because it doesn't sound like you're ready to retire and you still would like to work and still have a meaningful work career before you transition to your next phase. But I do have some good news for you. Because you're 55 years old, there's a little known rule in the tax law, and I don't know why it's little known because all you have to do is Google it, that says you can access money from a 401k in the year that you turn 55 and after without a 10% penalty. And so most people are under the impression that they can't get their retirement funds until they're 59 and a half. That's kind of true. I mean, that is true for an IRA or things like that, but for a retirement plan at your work, you can get access to that money without the IRS penalty in the year you turn 55. If you retire as separate service in the year you turn 55, or if you're terminated or their position is eliminated. So you can't retire at 50 and then at 55 get the money. So there is an out. I would be very careful. There's some considerations that you have to taken into the whole plan. And we help people with this all the time, because people come in, they're like, I retired at 53 and I don't know what to do. I'm like, man, can you eke out another year and a half, 2 years? You don't have to be 55. Your birthday could be in November, but you could retire in February and be 54 and still get access to that money. We helped somebody from Geico with that just probably in the last 2 years. And that's one of the more recent ones that we got somebody that we're working with right now. It's just knowing the laws and knowing the rules, and we do that and very, very comfortable with those things. So I'd love for you to give us a call, and we'll talk through this with you.
Yeah, and you can also go to talkwithjlp.com to go ahead and schedule that time to talk with the team there. All right, this next question, Lee. My husband and I are both 55 and recently finished paying off all of our debt except the mortgage. We'd been paying about $5,000 a month toward the debt for the last 2 years, so now I'm trying to decide what to do with this $5,000 now. Should we just pour money into our retirement savings, put it all towards the mortgage, or something else completely?
I don't think it's an all or nothing game. I think it's awesome that you've paid off everything. Somewhere Dave Ramsey is hollering at the top of his lungs that you're debt free, and Dave would tell you to put all the money towards the house and get that thing paid off. I'm probably not of that opinion. Again, I don't know how much you owe on the house. You're 55, debt free except the mortgage. Probably tells me you've had this mortgage for a while, which means you're on the back end of this mortgage, which means most of your payment at this point is going towards principal and not interest. And if that's the case, paying off the house doesn't make that much sense financially. What I would rather you do is take that $5,000. Let's make sure we've got 2 savings accounts funded to whatever level you need. That emergency fund, so I have plenty of money for emergency fund. That amount is based on the level of complexity and expenses and all this kind of stuff in your life. So whatever that is, maybe you put 25 grand in there. Then I want you to have a second savings account that I call a trip or a stuff fund. Have money in there for you to enjoy and not have to worry about spending it. And again, whatever that level is, fund it to there. Then outside of that, I would probably fund a taxable account, which means a non-retirement account. Let's put some money in there, give you some access to that money before your retirement age. And that's what I would do, because I want you to enjoy your life, especially while you're young enough and healthy enough to do it, because there will be a point in your life when you're not going to want to get on a plane. You're not going to want to sit on a plane for 8 hours and fly overseas. You're just not. So do that while you're young enough to do it. And having money gives you options. And I'll tell you, when somebody retires, one of the first things that they wind up doing within 2 years is they call and they're like, I need some money to remodel the house. I mean, it happens to almost everybody. So they're taking out 25, 35, 50 grand to remodel the house. Have that money set aside if that's in your plans.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next question here. I retired 3 years ago, thinking that my wife would be retiring soon after me. I bought a camper and everything. I'm ready to see the country. She keeps saying that we need her to work for 6 more months, but then when that 6 months is up, she says we need to work for 6 more months. So how do I convince her that it's okay to retire?
Yeah, you're in a tough spot here. I don't know that you're going to convince her. You probably need somebody else to convince her, and I would say she needs to hear it from somebody other than you. I mean, I'd love to sit and chat with you so I can show her the numbers, and she may agree with that or not agree with that. I meet with people all the time, and I show them that they're ready to retire now. Yeah, I can't change their mind. Sometimes it's just too ingrained in their mind, because everybody brings in their past financial experiences. So there's probably something rooted in her past. Maybe her grandparents grew up in the Depression or something like that, and she doesn't want that to happen. But I would tell her, and I've offered this to hundreds of families, test it out, which means she doesn't have to stop working. But if you've run the numbers and you know what your income is going to be in retirement, y'all start living on that now. Do that for 6 months or a year, and just put all the other money aside, just save it, but live on your retirement income. And if you can do that, then you're ready to retire. And then you can not just tell her, you can show her that it can happen. So yeah, I think you got a tough conversation, but it can certainly happen.
Yeah, this just goes back to you want to communicate about these things beforehand, right, Lee? That's why we talk about the importance of talking about what your lifestyle is going to be, making sure you and your wife are on the same page. Last thing you want to do is get to retirement all excited and then not agree on what to do with your time.
100%. Make sure you have the conversations earlier, because it is going to make it's going to make your life way easier. Because I've had conversations where people are not on the same page when it comes to their ability to retire, but almost to a number, everybody comes in like a year or 2 years later, and the spouse that said we can retire, they're sitting there with a big grin on their face, and the other one has to like, okay, he was right. I confess, we should have retired a year earlier. It just happens. It does.
All right, one final question for today's episode. I've heard that there's a way to have tax-free income in retirement. So how does this work? It seems that all the money in my 401k hasn't been taxed yet, so I don't know how I'd be able to withdraw that without paying taxes.
So you have to pay taxes. I always tell people the difference between tax avoidance and tax evasion is 10 years in a federal penitentiary. So we don't want to do the tax evasion. But so you're going to have to pay taxes on that. And how you get to a tax-free income in retirement is basically, you got to plan. It doesn't just happen. You have to plan, may consider Roth conversions for a lot of people. That means you got to know your tax bracket. You got to know where you are, know how much room you have in your bracket and maybe the bracket ahead of you. And basically it's paying your taxes over time in a strategic manner, paying it off early, getting it over to a tax-free status like a Roth IRA. Then that grows tax-free, and distributions from that are tax-free. We can help people get to a tax-free income in retirement, but it usually takes 7 to 10 years, depending on the person. Sometimes it's quicker than that. Sometimes it takes a little bit longer. But I do know this: if all of your money is in the tax deferred bucket, like IRAs and 401ks, you're going to lose control, because you're at the mercy of whatever a politician does, and all they have to do is strike a new law with a pencil, because all those laws are written in pencil, and then taxes increase, and then the next time you go to draw $1 out, instead of you getting 80 cents and the government getting 20 cents, you might get 70 and they might get 30, and we don't control that. Once it's in a Roth IRA, you don't have to worry about it.
I love that. All right, some great questions today. And look, this is the type of planning that JL Perkins Wealth Management does every day for their clients. You can get in touch right now by going to talkwithjlp.com and pick out a time to get on the calendar. Lee, I know there's going to be all kinds of questions. People will probably come in with you to begin things, but what I need to have prepared when I first come in to meet with you for that first time?
Great question. That first meeting is just a conversation. It's going to be me learning, or one of our advisors here, just learning more about you, what your concerns are, and we want to determine if we can add value. Some of the things that people will bring into a first meeting are going to be any kind of financial information that will be helpful for us as we plan for you. That means income from all sources, like what you make, or if you're already retired, what are your Social Security amounts? If you're not retired, what are those Social Security amounts going to be? Probably the hardest thing for somebody to know is what they spend. And expenses, that's a pretty big deal. I would say that's one of the most important numbers, is knowing how much you spend. So living expenses, meaning what you spend every month, and then the liability payments, any debts that you may have, all that information. I would say account statements of any assets that you have, because we want to stress test those and let you see how much risk you're actually taking. I would tell you 80% of the people that come in here are taking way more risk than they realize it. And most of the time it's unnecessary risk. So if we can decrease your risk and give you possibly a higher return, why would you not do that? It makes complete sense. But again, that first meeting, you don't necessarily have to bring anything. It's just a conversation, and we can talk about the next steps after that. We don't charge to meet. We'll take you through our next phase planning process. We don't charge for that, but most of the time at the end of that, people are like, man, I like what you guys have to say. I need your help. So yeah, that's the process.
Yeah, take them up on that opportunity to have a conversation. It won't cost you anything, and maybe feel a little bit better coming out of that. Hopefully, that's the goal. But if you've enjoyed this episode of the podcast, please subscribe. We appreciate that support as well. Back again soon in a couple of weeks, another episode. So, Lee, take care until then.
I appreciate it, man. See you. Hey there, Lee Perkins here. If you're like a lot of folks, you've been listening to this podcast for a long time now, but I've got an important question for you. Have you implemented any of the ideas that we've discussed on the show? If you haven't, what are you waiting on? You know you're not getting any younger, so here's my challenge. Don't just consume the content. Our number one goal for this podcast is to help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement. So if you're ready to implement, take that first step today and visit www.talkwithjlp.com and schedule a 15-minute phone call with one of our advisors, and we'll help you close the gap between what you know and what you implement so you can enjoy the next phase of your life. Now is your time. Don't procrastinate any longer.
Investment advisory services are offered by J.L. Perkins Wealth Management, a registered investment advisor and insurance agency. Information is for illustrative purposes only and does not constitute tax, legal, or investment advice. Always consult with a qualified tax, legal, or investment professional before taking any action.